All right, I think we're just going to get started. So, thank you again for joining us for the next webinar in our series, Generating Proposals. We've got a couple sessions that we're going to go through on proposal generating, and this is going to be the first one. So, we've got some great updates to our get quote, instant quote process. I'm going to walk you through the updates today and a brand new feature we're introducing. So, we're very excited to talk through this. We've put a lot of work into our quoting engine, as well as our proposal system. So, I'm going to talk about the similarities and differences so people understand what those differences are. So today's agenda is we're going to walk you through the get quote instant quoting. I call it instant quoting now. We talked a couple weeks ago about the market request RFP process, which is another way to get quotes. It's just not instant because we're sending out the request for quotes to the market and receiving those individual quotes back. This is the instant quote, meaning you can get an instant quote right within our system. As a reminder, and we'll remind everybody here if you're not aware, our get quote, we have a 2.0 version. We rolled that out. Geez, it's probably 2024 now. And we've been going through several iterations of improvements and speeding up the process, improving the experience, user experience. But we're going to talk through that and the instant quoting, where that comes from, what is available, what are some limitations. It is ACA quoting, but it is national. So for those states that have up to 100 or up to 50, and you're still quoting heavily with the ACA market, then this is a great feature for you. It's also great for comparisons if people are looking at alternatives to level funded. Going to talk through the plan library as well, because that's a couple of additions to, right? The get quote is an instant quote, but we also get full plan records from our partner IDEON. And so I want to make sure I highlight that as well. New feature we're going to roll out today and announce today is the member level assignments. So our quoting engine up to this point has been single level and or just all members in all plans. So it's loading from your census, everybody on the census into every plan. We understand and we understood for a while, right, that if you have multiple plans and you want to split out those elections across the plan and alternatives, we now have the capabilities of that. And it's a really great add-on. It's beautifully crafted and done. And so we're going to show you the front end user experience of that. And then also with that, we've got some enhancements to our generating our proposals. That is going to be the spreadsheet, the outcome, the output of what you can present to your clients. So quoting, instant quoting is what we have our quoting engine, our Get Quote 2.0. That's instant quoting, that's ACA. When we finish that process, we generate a proposal. A proposal is what is a record that's created inside of our system. And the proposal can be created through the instant quoting, but it also can be created manually, which coming in 27, it'll be done for you. So we want to make sure we differentiate between our quoting and differentiate what the difference is between instant quoting and proposals. And for those of you that are newer to this feature, you can separate those. So if you're not interested in ACA quoting, the instant quoting that we're going to focus on today, you can still use and you can add the feature for creating proposals. And that is, again, the side-by-side comparison, current renewal alternatives to generate and provide to your clients. Why would you do that? Consistency in the output, automation, and marking our quote as sold carries all that work back through to our policies, which we're going to highlight in another future webinar. We still use Conga Composer to generate those proposals and get the output out of the system, as I explained in training. Building everything within Salesforce is great, but at some point we need to get it out of the Salesforce Benelinx system, and we use Conga Composer to do that. several benefits there, customizability. You have multiple templates that you can use and build, manage, update, um, unique branding to your agency. So Fortune 500 stuff there. So I'm going to walk you through the system here in a little bit, but I want to walk through a few slides and remind folks and just talk through. We've had several iterations of our system in the quoting area. And over the years, we've kind of backed into, right? Where do we start our quoting and our proposal process? So this is a visual for us to think about. In a perfect world, which I know it's not always a perfect world, the whole process, the marketing starts with our workflows. As some of you are aware, we have two different standard types of workflows built into the Benelinx Managed Package, which is our onboarding workflow, which is when we BOR a group and we may be quoting that group right away. And that's off-cycle renewals. That would be one type of workflow that would get us to the steps where we can either request an RFP or get that instant quote. The other major workflow with automation around that is our renewal workflow. So annually when we're marketing, we're meeting with the client, we're deciding if they're going to market, if they want us to market, then that would be the other time where automation and processes where this instant quote would start, or the quoting proposal process. I say, in a perfect world, because you may have off cycle, where you need to do quoting, and I'll show you where that also lives in the system so it's easily accessible. As with anything in Salesforce, Benelinx, there's a lot of ways to get to the same records. And like I said, automation around. So our renewal workflow process that automatically gets created, our RFP and/or our instant quoting. So you can see that's where we can decide. We may do both. We may generate an RFP request and an instant quote. The RFP request may be the tracking that we highlighted at the last webinar, where we can track sending out that RFP request to those individual carriers or TPAs, returning those responses, saving those files, and using Cloud Maven to manage the email communication. When would I use that? If I'm getting underwritten quotes back, right? And I may in one renewal cycle or onboarding, I may create both the RFP request and the instant quote. I may do an instant quote and also send it out to market. And I may do that with medical. So I may want to get my level funded RFP quotes back that are underwritten. I may also generate an instant quote. I may also generate an RFP request for my ancillary, right? So ancillary quotes typically are sent out directly to the carriers. You guys get competitive rates, custom plans, but I also still might get an instant quote in addition to that. So I have the option and the flexibility within Benelinx to create both market requests. Okay. Overall, though, when we get to the bottom here, we want to emphasize that at the end of the day, as we're working through that process, whether we get the quotes returned that are level, medically underwritten from the market one at a time through our RFP request tracking, or the instant quote, we end up at building the proposals. And I just want to highlight and emphasize also that getting a quote is not the same as generating a proposal. Getting a quote is the instant quote that is generated, that is powered by Ideon, right? That's our vendor that provides us with the underwritten quotes and the plan designs. Once we submit that quote, the system creates a proposal, which is then can be modified, updated, changed, and then that proposal can be generated, which is the spreadsheet that you can provide your client, side-by-side comparison. Distinct differences. May or may not use the instant quote, does not waive our rights or ability to generate a proposal. Okay. I may go down this path where I go through my renewal workflow, I submit an RFP request, I get those quotes back, and then I create a proposal. I can also go the other direction where I go through my renewal process, I get an instant quote, which then the end of that instant quote, it creates that proposal for me. And I may go through both processes. Okay. Really important, though, to understand the difference between quoting and proposals. Again, our quote engine is powered by Ideon, used to be called Vericred. They're the insurtech vendor in our market that provides ACA rating, but also the plan designs that come from the carriers. Okay. So what is available through that instant quote? It's ACA national. We have all 50 states now. All 50 states based on what Ideon is able to negotiate with those carriers. 'Cause we don't go pound on doors. We're not knocking on the carriers' doors asking for plans and rates. They're the aggregator for us. So they go work and contract with each of the insurance companies. They get the electronic connections, and then they're the ones responsible for doing the underwriting. I explain again in our onboarding that if you have the instant quoting, the Benelinx Instant Quote 2.0 is a pass-through quoting engine. Okay. What that means is that our system collects the minimum required information in a census, in the SIC code, the demographics of the employees, their zip code, etc. All that information electronic gets passed through to Ideon, and all available plans from each carrier is returned. There's no additional filtering. There's no preferred rating, preferred vendors. It is a pure pass through. We do not get compensated on the back end in any way, shape, or form. It's actually very expensive for us to contract with Ideon. And so that's really important, though, that we are not in any form a GA relationship with Ideon or the carriers. It's purely a pass-through quoting engine, which makes us very agnostic, which is good. Okay. Um, so the dependency on what I can get from Ideon, right, and what from our quoting is going to be ACA or small group. And as we know, based on federal healthcare reform requirements, they've delegated down to the states to determine what is small group. And so different states have different thresholds. Colorado has under 50, under 100, in California. So each state could vary depending on what they have agreed as defining a small group. So if you are under 100, then there's a lot bigger market for us to need or want the ACA quoting. Okay. What is returned can be either H-band or composite, so you can decide. And again, the underwriting requirements will limit what is returned. So if there are certain carriers with underwriting requirements and minimum size to return composite rates, and you ask for composite rates and they're not available because the carrier has a limit and you've requested a quote for 3 people and the limit is 5, right? To get composite rates, it'll return age rated. Okay, but it's available based on underwriting approval or requirements for those particular carriers. Our system can quote those ACA medical. It can also quote dental and vision. Again, the dependencies on the negotiations at Ideon on behalf of all their customers, the Benelinx being one of those, has negotiated to contract and provide those rates and plan designs. In addition to our contract and relationship with Ideon, like I said, it's national. We have access to the carriers that they've contracted with. It's all the major ACA carriers in the market. But we also are able to get the level funded plan designs in specific states. So filling up the plan library from Ideon is also a really important component, right? That's a heavy, labor intensive area of our system that historically has been manual entry. We use and we contract and we have that Ideon integration, then that library at the very least starts to get filled up with the states and the products and the carriers that we choose. That is specific to your particular contract that you have with Benelinx and what level of detail you want the integration to be pulling into your system. So it's not the same for all. Some people want certain states, some people want others, some people have limitations on what they want pulled into their system. Some are looking at just medical, some do like the dental and vision, as well as we're able to limit or control the filters on what actual carriers are going to be loading into your system. And again, traditionally, we've got our ACA. However, based on the contract that Ideon has with United Healthcare, we're able to also pull in the plan designs. We can't quote level funded United Healthcare, but we can at least pull the plan designs in to your org, and there is some dependencies. So you have to be careful because United Healthcare is only approved certain states. So it's not blanket across the entire country where we have all level funded UHC. It is based on specific states, but it is better than nothing. And again, the heavy manual entry. So if you don't know if the UHC level funded is available in your area or in the states that you're interested, reach out and we'll get you that list. Okay, so two areas, instant quoting, which gives us instant quotes, right? The returns of the rates, but we also, when we connect with our IDN partner through our integration, we also have that plan library, which is filling up that plan object with all those records. Plan design details, deductible, copay, coinsurance. They have the SBC links. They have links to prescription or pharmacy benefits searches. So lots of great details that we don't have to create. Okay. So we're going to walk through the get quote, instant quoting. Okay. This process has not changed the first three steps. So we're going to review, but the interface and the experience has much improved from our 1.0 to our 2.0. So for those folks that haven't looked at it recently, we will highlight the changes that we've rolled out since we rolled out 2.0, and some of the updates that we're constantly making to make those experience improvements. We're going to upload that census. We're going to walk you through that process. It's a much more friendly user interface. There's a lot of things we can add and update and filter and sort. And we're going to talk about this plan selection, which is going to become really important when we are assigning member level, right? We want to make sure we know their current policy. What is everybody elected? Did John pick the HSA 5000 or did John elect the $500 copay plan, right? So in that census is where we're going to make that assignment, which will carry all the way through to our member level. And it's been there. And I know folks that have used our quoting engine have been assigning those plan elections, and it didn't really go anywhere until now. So finally, we're rolling that out. So it does matter, and it will carry through to our member level. Some more to come on that. The get quote, we're going to walk through that. This is where we're going to be able to instantly, once we load our census, get the return. So if I'm in the state of Colorado, it's going to give me all the plans that are available based on the effective date that I choose, the plan type or product that I'm looking for, medical, dental, vision, the SAC code, and the demographics of my census, right? The zip code, and the elections of my members. So that instant quote is going to give me the plans to quote page where I'm going to be able to sort and filter and select which plans I want to present to my client. It is also going to include my renewal plans, right? This is where for ACA plans, what is filed with the DOI of your state, the Division of Insurance of your state. ACA medical small group plans go through that whole approval process and filing, right? And a lot of those renewal plans are also filed and approved annually. So we can pull in not only what are we recommending to our client moving forward, but also our renewal plans. What is the incumbent insurance company of my medical provider giving me as the renewal plans that are available if they want to auto renew, right? They used to call them renewal plans and they called them MAP plans, and now they're renewal plans again. Essentially, when you get your renewal document from your incumbent carrier, what are their recommended renewal plans? Those are also available for us to select in our get quote. So we're gonna go find our renewal plans and our alternatives. If they don't want the renewal that the carrier is recommending, what alternatives within the same carrier and obviously outside the same carrier. Okay. For those that are haven't looked at our get quote recently, we also have the ability now to pull in the full table rates. In the past, we just had the age rates per member. Now we can pull in the full table per plan that we're selecting. So that's a newer update as well. Once we've completed selecting our recommended or proposed plans, then we're going to create our proposal. That again is a secondary record. Our get quote engine, our instant quote, is that connection with IDEON. We're going to load that census and all our demographics. We're going to push the button. It's going to send that request out to IDEON, pass through everything that you've loaded for that particular client. Everything's going to get returned. We're going to be able to see what those returned options are, and we're going to go through and select our renewal and our alternatives. Okay. Once we hit submit, it's going to create a record in our system, right? It's going to create that proposal record. I'm going to be able to leave then and go back to it if I need to run out for a meeting or take a phone call. I'm going to then have this proposal record that's attached to my client account. That proposal then can be customized. I can add to it. I can add additional proposed plans. Maybe I have a Delta Dental plan I want to add because IDN doesn't have Delta Dental as contracted. Maybe I want to add VSP, or maybe I want to add those requested underwritten quotes that I use the RFP part of Benelinx to request and track. I can add those in. I can add in also, obviously I'm going to map my current and my renewal. So I can say it side by side, right? Current, renewal, alternatives. Client's always going to want to know, what am I paying now? What am I going to pay if I just take the renewal that the incumbent carrier is recommending? And then what if I change my plan design and or leave that carrier for an alternative in the market? And we do that across all of our product lines, medical, dental, vision, life, and disability. And as you noticed, as I mentioned earlier, IDEON quoting, our instant quote is only available for medical, dental, vision. So this is where in my proposal, I can add life, short-term, long-term disability, right? I can add to it because my proposal is my spreadsheet that I'm going to turn over to my client. I'm going to present that to my client. Instant quote is a piece of what I get to then start creating my proposal. I can add to it, modify, adjust, change the order, and then I'm going to get it ready to then present that proposal, i.e. spreadsheet, to my client. That proposal is a record in the Benelinx system. I can go in, I can see it, I touch it, I can move it around, I can change it, and then I'm going to generate. Okay. Instant quote gives me proposed plans that live inside of my proposal. I may or may not use the instant quote, but I can still use my proposal and I can build my proposed plans, current, renewal, alternatives. But it's a heavy lift. This is how I explain it in onboarding. It's a heavy lift. Instant quote gives me quick results, right? The immediate results of what is available in my ACA market, whether they stay, move, or transition. That's going to give me those instant proposed plans. I'm going to also show you we're going to be able to make sure we set our structure, right? I may want the order of my proposal in a variety of different ways. That output. Do I want it least to most expensive? Do I want it low deductible to high deductible? Do I want it by carrier per page? Okay. So member level, this is new. This is where, right, historically, we have single option plans. Everybody's in every plan because there's only one. Current plan one, we've got our renewal plan one, and we've got our alternatives. Now our system, new feature, has the capabilities if I have multiple plans. If I have a base buy-up, right? Right now, that's what they currently have. My renewal is going to be a base buy-up, and I'm going to want to show the client a base buy-up strategy. Okay. Historically, when we did that, it would show those alternatives with every single person on the census loaded into each one of those alternative plans. Now we can break it apart and we can assign. We want to say, you know what, these 5 people are on the base plan. These 3 people are on the buy-up plan. We want to then represent that member level assignment, right? Those people that have elected different plans, and we want to show our HR person, our owner, we want to show them that breakdown. I want to say, my 5 people here and my 3 people here, and what's the net total? And how does that compare to if I do a different combination or groupings of alternatives, a different base and a buy-up? What's the net overall cost and the comparison between the two? Now we can do that. And we have that embedded inside of our get quote. What I love about the way this was designed, thanks to our amazing developers, is that it's at the end of our get quote. And we can actually go in and we can assign member level because I've already gotten our quote and now we can assign member level and we can reassign it. We're going to be able to go back into it later. Let's say I want to redesign, I want to change who's going to elect what. I can go in and do that reassignment after the fact. I don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of my get quote to do that, which is really important. And we've got some additional objects. We're going to do modeling, right? I'm going to be able to set different models. Maybe I want 2 or 3 sets of those dual options. That's each one of those is a model. I'm going to tell the system which of the 2 I'm selecting, and then under that, who is going to be electing each one of those of that set of plans. So we have it structured just like we have our current get quote, where we have proposal, proposed plan, and proposed plan participants, the layering of our system. The model works the same way. We have a model record. I've got 1 model or 2 or 3 or 4. Under that, I've got the plans that fit into that model, right? I picked 2 plans. Which ones are they? And under that, even I've got the different participants. I've got 3 participants in 1 plan, and then I've got the other model that has the 5, right? So structurally, it's matching and it's mirroring our current get quote. A lot of layers, though, right? A lot of data that we have to track and manage. And then we're going to be able to generate our proposal. So, going to walk through that. Last but not least, depending on our timing, we're going to go through and I'll show you the output, which is Conga. Again, I'm going to show you a sample. Conga Composer templates are modifiable. You can have a variety of versions depending on every single agency wants to illustrate their proposals in a slightly different way, which is great and it's fine and it's doable, right? This is one of the areas when I was an agency owner was critical, right? That I had the uniqueness of my agency of how we're representing and making our recommendations. It's all about our branding and our design structure and consistency, and the image that we're providing, and the way that we explain our benefits. So that is a critical component. I'm going to show you the newer version template that we have now for member level. Last but not least, before we move to giving you a visual of how this all works in the system. Over the course of these webinar sessions, we've been going through our life cycle, right? We introduced the sales side of the Benelinx system earlier in the year. We've gone through some of the updates and additional partnerships we have, like with the RFP tracking and creation. And now we're at the generating proposal. The instant quote is one way for us to get to that proposal. That is not the only way. So we're going to highlight that in the next session. Today is the focus on the instant quote. But again, I want to remind people that it's not that we have to go through the instant quote to get to our proposals. It's one of 2 or 3 ways that we're going to go through. But this is where we're at, right? This is our life cycle of how Benelinx works in that holistic process. And before we finish our proposal kind of mini series, we're going to make sure we show you the benefit. The long-term benefit is at the end, right? The delayed gratification. I build my proposal, I get my instant quote, I add my proposed plans, and the value, the tremendous time-saving value is I can mark with what was sold, and all that work I do and did is going to copy over to my policy. Before we finish this process, then we're going to make sure you understand that it creates those policies or renews them, and we're going to show you the value. Not only once I've got those updated policies, I can use that updated policy detail to generate a booklet, right? We have booklet creation that's also customizable and multiple versions that we can have an output in PowerPoint. And then obviously our admin, and we're going to highlight the end of the year with highlighting our Employee Navigator Integration 2.0. I bring this up too because before we pivot over to show you the feature, we have incredible things coming at Benelinx. I'm so excited to share some of the new releases that we're working on. Probably take us longer than we thought. Shocker, anything in this space does. But the booklet generation is coming as a webinar, but also our Employee Navigator 2.0 and our AI document generator. So those are really, really significant changes that we're going to be introducing the later part of 2026, early 2027. Not to even haven't even talked about commissions. That's a whole nother thing that's coming with some AI and an integration. But I want you guys to think about this as we go through this process is if the end goal is that employee navigator bi-directional integration, we're going to want to back into understanding and thinking about how and what level of detail are we creating records and the policies in our system. Okay, so whether we generate proposals or not, that plan level detail and how we create that information and track it. Are we tracking right now deductible, copay, coinsurance at that level? If we want to get here, we're going to have to think about where do we need to start that process. Okay, and there's going to be a lot of efficiencies with being able to get here where we can pull and push, not just push, but pull back that plan level detail, the policies, the rates, the contributions, and that's going to come into play over here when we have our policy creation and or proposals. So food for thought. That if we want to get here, we're going to think about what else we want to add in and start thinking about what kind of data do we want to capture and how is our data structured currently in Benelinx, because not everybody has plan level detail in the system. Okay, next session. So 2 weeks from now, we're going to keep this mini session going. We're going to go through and we're going to really, really focus because we're running out of time today already about building proposals. So I'm going to take you through the front end of the instant quote, getting us to that proposal. Then our proposals, like I said, can come from our instant quote, but they can also be custom built. We're going to spend a lot of time going through the proposal object, which may or may not include the instant quote, but also may or may not include the member level that we're highlighting today. And we're going to start talking about the templates, the output, Conga templates in Excel, and how do I modify? How can I? What does it look like? What can I have in my system, and how different or similar is it to what the Benelinx standard templates are? Because we're, again, with Conga Composer, we're giving you an application. The world is your oyster. You can use Conga Composer anywhere in the system. You can create as many different versions of your proposals as you would like as your agency shifts, modifies, updates, creates standardization, right? That's the intention here, automation and standardization. You're still going to evolve. Your proposals are going to evolve. They're going to change. Maybe you went from putting 30, plans on a proposal to now 3 recommendations, right? May have narrowed that down. The market is shifting, what we're quoting and how. So we understand that it doesn't stay the same. And so that template is again, fully customizable. Really want to make it yours. And then it's also updatable. And if you can have your market refresh and you can adjust as you change your structures internally. So important to note that. And any questions you guys have can reach out to us. So let's take a quick click. Okay, so good old Bob's Bakery. So as I mentioned, just going to go back through my notes here real quick. So where does this all start? As I mentioned before, in a perfect world, right? We have 2 different types of workflows, whether we BO our group mid-year and or onboarding, same process we may go through to get that client we may be quoting. In addition, our renewal cycle, right? So we have 2 different ways from a processing standpoint that we may start that instant quoting. Third thing is, I mentioned the client may reach out to us and say, hey, we've gone through a massive shift, change in ownership, change in leadership. We know that your renewal's in September, but we need you to quote it early. We may be off cycle where we don't have one of those workflows. And so we can actually get to that quoting in a separate way, more direct if we need to through our quoting tab. We're going to build our market request. We're going to load our census and we're going to generate our proposals, right? So lots of ways. In a standard way, with automation, we're going to go through a renewal. If we need to do outside of, right, off cycle, we can always get to it right directly through that quoting. We walked through this in great detail in the last webinars. This is my renewal checklist. As I go down the page, client decides to market, or I know that we're going to get an instant quote. This is where that instant quote record market request is getting created. As I mentioned also in my diagram, I may do both. I may go to market and send out an RFP request for my ancillary or my level funded. At the same time, I'm also getting an instant quote, right? And that's okay. That's great. We have the capabilities. We want to cover all the bases, right? Some of this you're going to send a request back, right? So you can get those underwritten. And some of this we're going to say, hey, while I'm waiting for those quotes to be returned, I also want to get a snapshot of what's going on in the ACA market. They may already be there. The client may be too small. They may have medical issues, right? That where they don't qualify. And we also may just want to show them the ACA market. Maybe they've been in the level funded market for a couple of years, and then there's a new carrier in the market, the ACA, or new products, and they want to see what's available. So I can do both. I'm not limited to one or the other. However, it all brings us back to our proposals one way or the other, right? So, instant quote. I always talk about this. This is the object that we always forget about. This is our market request, and it's our small group quote. This is where the process starts. Okay. As mentioned, our get quote 2.0, this is our instant quote. Okay. This is where the quote engine is building, right? That we're going to go into this quote engine. It's going to then load, and we're going to start the process to get that instant quote. So what it's doing right now, it's looking for a census, okay? And this is our census builder page. I can go in and I can upload a census right here, drag and drop it. And if I'm looking for the census template, if you have the quoting feature already in your org, you will have the census template link. This takes you to our website that has a public link. You can download that census template, Excel, CSV, pull your information in, and then load that census. Okay, so that's where the template is. I can go in and I go and update, and I'm going to import that, and it's going to give me this preview page. All right. This should look familiar to folks. Big difference between the old version and the new, right, is that once I load it, I have lots of functionality I can include. You can see we have middle name now added because we had several agencies in different areas of the country. We have lots of juniors. We have John Jr., John Jr., the second, the third, the fifth, the 12th. Yeah, so we needed middle names to differentiate between. Obviously, we have date of birth, gender. As we scroll over, we have our elections. And again, this is a very full census. I can make modifications. I can make updates. I can decide if I've got a different county. So I'm going to preview this. The one thing I want to highlight is the medical policy. So our census template, we're going to load the elections, even if Adams has family, did they take that election for their whole family or employee only? But this is also this particular column is where we're going to tell the system which current policies that are in force right now, actively in force, did each of these people on the census elect. This little, circular arrows allows me to auto select. So this is pulling in all my in-force policies for this client. I'm in Bob's Bakery. Okay. And I can auto select all of them, which I've already done for you, but I can also go through, right? I'll just do it again, actually. Okay. I'm going to go through, select them all, but then I'm going to go hand pick and change who's got what. So typically, if I've got multiple plan options, I've got an 80-20 rule, right? 80% of people are taking the lowest, least expensive plan. And then we got some folks that are picking the buy up, right? This is where I'm going to elect that. I'm going to make sure that this is indicated so that it's going to update that at the policy level, our current policy level. And when I save it, it's going to remember this when I go through my get quote. Okay. So really important. This has been here since the 2.0. Now it's going to make a difference on how our member level assignments are going to work. Okay. So want to make sure we have that. I'm going to go back here real quick because I don't want to mess up my get quote. Already got it pre-built. So again, getting into that, it's going to prepare the census. I can make an adjustment if I need to update anything that's incorrect. I'm going to save and move forward. Again, this part of the system is the same as what we've had. Again, we've made a lot of improvements with good error messaging, also the speed. We updated our system, which it was requiring NPN in the past, and I'm going to continue through to make my elections age-banded or composite, dental vision. All of this is already pre-validated. So that get quote census, if you looked at that, there's an action button on the top right. I can actually export the census as well. So take a little bit of time and look at that census builder and understand if I change things, what happens, right? I'm going to make sure it's updated. I can export it. I can reload. I can actually pull in a census from ease, which obviously the Employee Navigator 2.0, I'll be able to pull a census in from there as well. Here's then our proposal builder. This is where we have our plan options. This is where we can sort and filter by certain areas, right, of the system. I can decide if I want metal level. I can decide if I want to filter by certain carriers, and I'm going to start selecting. It's also really important to make sure we select not only all our alternatives I mentioned, but also our renewal. So I'm going to select an additional one because this is my renewal. I can sort by plan code here. I can sort by deductible if I'm looking for a particular plan, and it's telling me the number of plans available and how many I've selected. It's a lot of great filtering and sorting for me to start selecting which plans I want to include in my proposal. Again, I'm still in the get quote. This is my preview page. Remember that I can select that. And this is the plan that is the renewal that the incumbent carrier gave me. I'm going to select or deselect. If I forget to do it here, I do not have to go back through the get quote. I can actually do that once the proposal is created. But this gives me an option to remove. I can add my renewal plans, and I'm going to create my proposal. Okay. As it's going through, what it's doing is it's connecting again to IDEON to pull in all the plans, the proposed plan participant rates. For those of you that are newer to the system, I can actually generate the table rates per plan I've selected. Not all of them, not the whole market. That would be thousands and thousands, especially in California. But I can actually generate and create table rates for each of the proposed plans I've selected. And now this is the new feature. This is the big divide, right? I can finish, which in the past created that proposal, and then it showed me my proposed plans for my instant quote. Now I'm going to be able to, if you elect to continue, which we have to turn this feature on, it's brand new, so it's not going to work today when you get off the call. We have to turn on the feature, is where we can start assigning plans. When I get into the member level assignment, I'm going to walk through certain steps. It's going to give me a summary. It's going to give me that preview of all the plans I've already selected on my current policy. So it's almost like a mirror image of my census, but I can also make updates if I need to. I can adjust. If I did not pick the right medical plan selections that are currently in my in-force, I can adjust that here. I can go next step, or I can click on the path, and it's going to give me the option of selecting. Here's my renewal. I want to make sure I select those, and I want to add mapping. So I'm going to say this is my current, and here's my renewal. So for those of you that are using the get quote, if I use member level, remember we had to go in and use the extra button to assign and map our current to our renewals. This is now going to do that for us. Yay, less buttons. Okay. In addition, then, once I've done my mapping, I'm going to build my models. I can build as many as I want. So if I have, this is my current policy plans, right? This is showing me I have 2 plans. If I have 3 people on this plan and 5 people on this plan, and I map them, it's going to assign the same number of people. If John, Sally, and Tom are on this plan, and I select the alternative to match, John, Sally, and Tom are going to go on the alternatives. Same thing here, right? If there's 5 people here, I select the alternative, it's going to map those here. We've got a nice little summary. Here's my plan mappings, like my models. It's telling me now, of the 40, what is that, 42? So it's 43 total. I have 36 that are on this plan and 7 folks that are on the HSA. See how it splits that up? My census had 40, what is it, 43? Of that, 36 are going on this plan and 7 are going on that one. And I can build as many models as I need, selecting different plans and alternatives. Okay. So that's where we can start building our models, and this is where we can say, this is where we're going to map. These are the people that are on this plan. I'm going to match. HSA people are going to go on the HSA plan. PPO are going to go on the PPO. Right? So once we've built that, right? And at the end, this is where it's completed. We leave now the get quote engine. Now we're inside your Benelinx Salesforce system. This proposal, version 3, has now been created. Not only did it do the same things we're used to, where it's gonna build all of our proposed plans, it's marking the renewal. That current and renewal, remember normally in the old way, if we don't use member level, we have to add our renewal plans here within the member level assignment. We're doing that embedded in those steps. We don't have to build it now. And now we can see our models. I built 2 models. Here are the models that we have within the system. Each one is going to show me. I can see my total, how many elections, and I can see the breakdown of the totals, right? I can see that I've got 2 of my alternative plans. I can see 36 folks are going to be in option 1, and the 7 are going to be in option 2, and I can see that plan name, right? So model 1, here's my scenario. I'm going to decide grouping, which of the 2 are going together and who's going to be in each one. Gets me to my overall total. I could even go into the model and I can see more details as well as all my participants. That one had 30 something, and if I go here, I can see the 7 participants here. So I can drill down just like I could do in my proposed plan participants. I can do it in my model. Who did I assign? I have 2 different models. HSA, PPO, okay, we got this plan and this plan. Who's in each? I can drill down and I can go and look at who's in each one based on the model that I've built. Before we move on, I mentioned that once I get to this point, I can actually go back in later. I don't have to go through the whole get quote. I don't have to go all the way back to the market request and go back to the get quote. If I want to go back and change my assignment, I can go right here and there's a button right in my proposal. I have to get to my proposal. It has to create my proposal record. Once I do, don't have to go all the way back through get quote. I can go right to my proposal, and now we've got a button that'll take us right into the member level, and I can add models. I can build them and I can change them here. This is huge, right? This is a really great experience. Much, much, much improved. We want you to be able to go in. Maybe you decided you want to change something. You don't have to go all the way back through get quote. Because again, the instant quote is what we get from IDEON, that connection, that integration. Once we know and we've selected the alternatives, the assignment is looking at those 5 or 6 plans that we've selected. Hopefully not more than 20 or 30. Hopefully less. But once we know which ones that we want to pull from the market, now we can mix and match our modeling and our member level assignment across those. Okay. If I need to go get different plans, I have to go back through the get quote, right? Because I have to get those from the market IDEON. We have to pull them in. But if I have a set number of proposed plans that I'm comfortable with, and where are they? They live right here. Right? If I'm comfortable with in that get quote, I selected these plans that I want from the market. I can go in and out of that member level assignment and reassign it in any way I want. I have to go all the way back and get a new quote if I need different alternatives, right? Because that's that connection with the IDEON integration. Okay. So it's going to take a little bit to get used to for some folks, but this is going to be really helpful. Pick your plans that you want. I always recommend when you get your renewal from your carrier, current renewal, right? You know what alternatives that United Healthcare is presenting to this client. You're going to look at those portfolio of alternative ACA plans, and you're going to select what other alternatives do I want to show this client with Anthem and with Kaiser, right? You can go into that get quote, grab those. If I've got a comprehensive list, when I finish the instant quote, right, and it creates this proposal, I have all the proposed plans I need now here in this record. And then I can go back later, I can go modify and I can assign the member level and I can mix and match the different plans I've already grabbed from the market. And I can go in and out of this feature without going all the way back. Okay. And full visibility. This system is creating all these records. It's creating the proposal, it's creating the proposed plans, right? It's also mapping the current to the renewal. Our new member level assignment is actually doing this mapping for us. Hallelujah, less buttons. Hopefully we can get rid of that someday. Models now, we can go in and I can see, here are the models, right? I've got two plans. Here are the two plans I've paired together and I've assigned of the 43 across the two plans. That's what a model is. I can go into the plan model names and I can see the detail, right? Here's my elections. Here's my total members. And by the way, if I keep scrolling, I've got my actual participants below here per plan model. And if I really wanted to get crazy, I could even go into my proposed plan participant and I could see John Adams' information. Drill all the way down, right? All those records have to be created. So we're getting close to the end of this session. Next session, sorry, 2 weeks. We're going to really spend a lot of time basically from here forward. I'm in the proposal, right? How do I customize this? Because I can, right? I can go in. This is what I got from our instant quote, but I can create self-funded plans. I can create, fully insured other medical plans. I could go down the list and I can create dental, vision, life and disability that I can't even get from IDEON, right? This is where we're going to customize this. You're going to be able to decide, what do I want to present to the client? The instant quote is just a piece of that, right? If I want ACA, small group, and maybe dental vision, if I get that from the quoting engine, in here, that's a quick quote, right? Instant quote, that's why I call it that. And that pulls in to this proposal, it pulls in those plans for me. It's a quick hit. That's what I tell people. After that, then I may need to get those underwritten quotes from my RFP tracker, and I may need to build into this. I may need to add more than what I got for my quoting. That's okay. We need to be able to do that. You're doing that in spreadsheets over here on the right-hand side, right? You're doing that when you're building out an Excel spreadsheet. You're adding in what are the other alternatives. And the idea is this proposal should be comprehensive. It should include all the products that the client currently has in force or all the products you want to show them. It's not just medical, dental, or vision. It might include you showing them this year, maybe life products, maybe short-term and long-term. So we're going to show you how to build that next session. We're not limited to what we can get from our quoting because it is limited. Market's shifting. There's less and less ACA quoting. Small group market, is getting smaller. And so we have more and more underwritten rates and plans. We also have a shift to larger market, right? We have larger clients. And so we want to make sure we're accommodating and being able to use the proposal feature for all if we want to, right? Creates that standardization, creates that consistency, creates that automation, right? Less room for error. And even better, at the end of the day, if I go back here, let's not forget, I go back into my market request and I mark what is sold. And it makes my policy record, updates my agency management system for the entire year. Creates new policy records for the new year. What'd the client buy, right? That's the end game, right? So it's going to create those renewal policies with the plan design, with the rates, with the contribution. Guess what? I can build my booklets now and I can push that stuff to Navigator. I love it. Okay. So member level assignment. This is the next step, right? The get quote. We want instant quote. We also want to do that assignment. We have lots and lots of moving parts in our market proposal world. It's not a one-to-one anymore. It's not one plan. Here you go. Here's your plan that your clients are presenting to their employees. It's very complex. We got multiple plan offerings. We need to be able to break out that assignment so that we can show the owner, the CEO, the CFO, the HR director that breakdown. Conga, Conga land is what I call it. And as most of you know, I love conga and I struggle with conga some days. But the beautiful thing about conga, and I will always say this, Conga Composer, it can do things that no other document generating tool can do. The complexity of our industry is where this tool becomes really powerful. The drag and drop one page quote is not our world, right? We have lots of tabs, lots of things moving, lots of things coming and going, right? So Conga gives us the capabilities of doing that. If it was a one pager, drag and drop, then this application would not make sense. But these templates are super complicated. So we're very grateful to Conga Composer for that capability. So you can see here, I can now select. We may have multiple buttons in your system. I'm showing you a simplified version. I generate my proposal. I may have them all together. Single means it's a one-to-one. Everybody in every plan. Now I've got my member level. That's beautiful, right? Here's a sample of what that looks like. So I've got my cover page, right? I've got my proposal template, and this is where we start showing that side by side. I know I've had people preaching and asking and screaming and yelling from the mountaintops, right? So here we are. So we've got now our side by side. Again, this is one version. There can be many. I know each one of the agencies has their own kind of way that they like to present these, but you can see here now we've got our current renewal, our side by side. This is where we have those 7 folks that are on the buy up, and now we're showing that total, right? So now budget wise, the client is going to see this is what we've got 2 plans, but we've got the majority of people on the base plan. We've got a few people on the buy up. Here's our net monthly and annual premium. And then here's my renewal. Okay, here's what the carrier said is the closest alternative. This is a little extreme, but now I can see my side-by-side comparison. This is age rated. We also have a composite version. And now I can see that comparison overall and then my net increase. And overall, then we go side by side, base to buy up, base to buy up. This is where our member level assignment comes into play. We've done and created, this is model 1 essentially. And here's our model plans, right? We picked the different model plans and then we did our assignment, right? Plan 1 is like plan 1, right? Those intuitively are the same members. Plan 2 loads the same plan 2 members. Our model allows us to do that, and this would be model 2. And you can see then side by side, I have my comparisons against now my current multi-option plan. Okay, so this is one version of that summary of that template output. This can go along with my dental, vision, life, disability. We have very complex templates. We can simplify them. We can modify them depending on your typical product sold, how many, depends on your market. California, God bless you guys in California, there's a gazillion different iterations. But most agencies kind of have a general template that we can modify. How many variations do you guys sell? Do you sell, dual options? Do you sell triple, quad? Is it unlimited? How do we create automation and standardization around that? But the idea is that the output is coming from that Conga document generator into a preset template that then pulls in that information for us. And I'm out of time. So, like I said, don't worry if we got to the end and you're like, oh, but I need more and I want to know more about proposals. Next session, next webinar, we're going to really spend more time here. We're going to spend more time in that proposal object. When do I get that proposal object? Where does it get created? If I don't do ACA quoting, how do I get here? Okay, we're going to walk through that. How do I build my proposed plans, my proposal, and then generate it? And then very, very last but not least, we cannot forget. Then at the end of this, we mark what is sold. Copies everything back into our policies. creates new policies at a renewal. We can generate booklets and share that information with IDEON or with Employee Navigator. I said that like 20 times, but it's really important to talk about that life cycle and make sure we don't miss the end. The end state is one of the most critical components. So thank you guys. I appreciate your time. This recording will be hosted, sent out if you missed it. And if you have any questions, reach out and we're happy to answer those. Thank you guys. Have a great day.